Welcome to the first episode of Game of Attention. My name is Becca Ventham. I am the Digital Content Manager at Dragonfly AI. Today we are going to be discussing how Unilever is transforming ice cream with AI. I will share the article alongside this video, but basically Unilever is using AI technology within 50,000 of their freezers to help them manage stock levels, submit orders, and alert stores when it is time to restock. This innovation has also benefited their retailers, who have seen an increase in sales of 15 to 35%. Discussing this today are two of my esteemed colleagues who will now introduce themselves.
So my name is James Hoblin. I'm a senior strategic account manager at Dragonfly. I've been working within the market research industry for the past 6 years between data collection, data analytics. Been with Dragonfly about 7 months now. It's been amazing to see the sort of recent changes AI has brought to the industry. Excited to dive in deeper.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean. I've been with Dragonfly for just over a year now. I'm the head of performance marketing at Dragonfly, and I look after mostly the marketing and especially in the performance marketing and advertising aspect of things at Dragonfly.
Fab. Thanks very much. Innovation has played a significant role in Unilever's success with AI in the ice cream business. How can, in your opinion, consumer goods companies foster a culture of innovation and simultaneously encourage a collaboration to drive AI adoption?
But anyhow, from my perspective, I think is one word is inevitability. Inevitability, is that the right word? For the scale of a company such as Unilever, which is so established, so global, they are essentially competing with all the challenger brands that's coming out. Those challenger brands who are super familiar with all the latest digital platforms, all the latest consumer, where the attention goes. Essentially, it's inevitable for them to have to innovate themselves in order to stay at the forefront of the media attention, the attention economy. For a global brand like Unilever, which has so much capital in terms of attention, in terms of brand loyalty, what they wanted to do essentially is making sure that they dominate the attention of their existing customers, as well as making sure that they don't stay behind comparing to their latest challenger brands or companies that's more on top of the attention game. After reading the article, I found it really interesting, particularly on the new terminology of decision intelligence, because it's kind of a great summary of the scale of the work that they need to do in the creative industry. I wanted to throw that question to James, the technology that was introduced in the article. So from your perspective, what did you see in terms of the brands that you worked with or you have dealt with? What did you see the change in terms of attitude in terms of excitement, in terms of curiosity that the brands has been sort of introduced in the process of speaking with you?
Yeah, sure. So I think there was a certain amount of skepticism amongst how AI could drive in terms of data collection. I think it was already there when you're looking at it in terms of like machine learning, how it can speed up sort of the reporting elements. I think that has been sort of adopted quite early by insight and data analytics teams, because obviously they have so many different channels of data. Using machine learning with AI to crunch that and speed up the reporting stage was really welcomed. I think when we're thinking about predictive AI and how they can use AI sources in their data collection, I think that's been a really exciting movement over the past sort of 6 to 8 months, based on two main areas that are often the driver of these things in big corporations. That's down to time and cost. So once we got to a stage where a predictive AI data source can be seen as reliable, that it's sort of correlated against historical data sets, I think as soon as that sort of rubber stamp of approval was connected, I think we've seen businesses now, businesses that work quick off the mark, that are sort of have a sort of legacy of slow adoption on things, are probably getting caught out at the moment. I think businesses that are on the forefront, that are really embracing the idea that for certain stages, particularly we think about innovation, so product innovation on every single stage of testing throughout that process, there are some areas where you can use a tool like Dragonfly, for example, to test attention. You don't necessarily need to involve the human in that. And without involving the human in that process, you save a huge amount of time and obviously a huge amount of costs because you're not having to pay for the sample or anything like that. So it's not to say that, AI adoption is going to completely change the industry. You can't replace everything with AI, but there are certain areas, particularly with a new product development, testing attention is a really good example of it, where you don't need to now send out that new product design to someone to test. There are tools out there that can do it really, really quickly. And we're reaching that sort of early adoption phase of things where businesses are seeing that, they've used it, they're seeing the results from it, and they're only scaling up that tech within their sort of departments.
On that, do you think that there is kind of, I know obviously there's blockers within the industry, but do you think that there is a lack of awareness about how far creative testing can actually take success?
Yeah, for sure. People are still a little bit afraid when you say AI to someone. It's like, oh shit, if I'm not on my A game for my job at every single moment, Skynet's going to turn around the corner and replace me in an instant. I think people are now, thanks to ChatGPT getting involved in people's lives, people are seeing that actually this isn't going to take my job. This is just going to make me better at my job. This is just another tool. Like, people are liking it to like an accountant when Excel came in. I've seen a couple of taglines for like agencies that were introducing Excel to sort of managing directors saying you can remove all of your bookkeepers, all of your accounting teams with the adoption of Excel. Well, that never happens. Accountants still exist. People
No.
still input data into Excel. But what it's done is obviously save a huge amount of time in doing formulas and things like that. I think we're at that exact same moment with AI, with tools like Dragonfly and other generative or predictive AI tools. They're not going to replace the human. They're just going to make the human faster, sharper, and get to their inevitable assumption a damn sight quicker than they used to. So I think that the
Yeah.
societal
And
help that ChatGPT has done is only just sort of helped it along, and people are getting over this entrenched like, oh dear, my job's going to go. It's sort of changed to, hang on, I'm only going to get better at this. So yeah, I think that's where we are.
massively with processes too, right? Like
Mm.
individual at an individual level, company level, but also like obviously supply chains and things. And as we're looking at Unilever, the freezer stock management and everything's kind of, it's just making it easier to manage, basically. Sean, so the article mentions AI being used to optimize advertising and marketing efforts. So you're obviously an ad genius. How can AI powered marketing campaigns enhance customer targeting?
So it's already been happening for many years. It's come to the spotlight recently simply because of the launch of ChatGPT and the latest AI hype, right? The hype train of AI. So again, it's inevitable. It's been. I remember many years ago, I would say 2015, 16, I already using bid management platforms such as DoubleClick, which was owned by Google, that most of the campaign optimization work, for example, if we optimize campaign performance against a KPI such as conversion, most of the heavy lifting already being done by machine learning algorithms. Let's say you define a particular target of how many conversion that you wanted to achieve based on the data that you've collected over the past X amount of period of time. The campaign would run its own magic, making sure that you'll hit your KPI such as conversion target or cost per conversion or ROI. So that's already been happening on the background for many, many years. And right now it's obviously a very hot topic that everybody's talking about. But is the algorithm and the industry of AI would only accelerate the performance of that to the next level. So I would imagine, based on my understanding, I would imagine in the next 10 years that it will only reduce the amount of work that advertising professionals will need to work on things, but also it will increase the accuracy and the efficiency of the campaign management and campaign performance, really.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
from a sort of obviously day-to-day basis, because you do this on a day-to-day basis, predicting attention on ads, how does that benefit your strategy for, well, our targeting?
It's kind of like the first layer of objectives, right? So if we can't capture the our audience attention as quickly and as the cost efficiently as possible, we're kind of not really getting anything. So depending on the campaign strategy, of course, depending on the campaign objectives. So let's say if we wanted to drive conversion for our campaigns, the first stop is actually to be able to capture the attention of our audience. Without that, there's no conversion to be talked about. So I guess the most important element is how would advertising tools or tools that we use to optimize our campaign performance can help us understanding the linkage or the connection between attention proven that measures how engagement is like with our ads, but then and then how the connection between engagement to conversion. So mapping out the every touch points of the entire journey of a conversion journey is quite crucial.
James, back to you. So we know that Unilever is using AI to create personalized ice cream flavors. How do you think this approach can impact customer loyalty and overall sales?
Yeah, I mean, anything personalized gets right to the heart of the consumer, which always does well. I think personalization is always strived for within any organization. I think, looking at the article, the cameras in the fridge and all that sort of stuff is, pretty mind blowing. If you think where we were like 5 years ago, I think big
Yeah.
companies like Unilever are only going to get more in tune with how consumers are thinking in more clever ways, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we're used to people, I think now, sort of, tracking your internet usage, finding out what you search, and then you see ads pop up. But now I think, you look into what's happening on the high street, these Amazon Fresh stores, are tracking you as you walk into a shop. They can see what products you're reaching for in store. If you bring some of the AI advancements into that process where someone, can not only see what you've bought from, like club card data or Nectar card data, or anything like that, but they can physically track you in a supermarket on what you're even considering to buy. I think we can see the personalization absolutely go crazy over the next sort of, up to the next couple of years or so. Which I think has its benefits because, people want to get to what they like quicker. That we all want to do that. We know what we like. We want that path to be very seamless without having to waste time and money trialing other products or trialing other things. I think every consumer would like to get there first. But I do think it reaches sort of terminal velocity where people sort of unwilling to give that much data or that much insight into their activities in supermarkets. So I guess I'm interested to see where it sort of balances out, where people are happy to have stuff personalized to them, but also, it's that terminal velocity, isn't it, really? And how quick how supermarkets and big CPGs can accelerate towards that without becoming a bit creepy, frankly. I think it's probably the best way to sum it up.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something on top. So I believe it's probably the scenario is very similar to Netflix. So Netflix would be based on machine learning algorithm based on the data that they collect from their user. Well, the first party data that they collect from their user, they'd be able to not only serve content that's highly relevant to what you've previously liked, but they also be able to use the data to predict what kind of content that you will likely to like in the future. So, for example, there's a very striking example of I'm not sure if you have seen the show of House of Cards. The show, have you seen it? House of Cards?
Yeah.
House of Cards was entirely created artificially based on the data that Netflix collected, historically speaking. So they basically identified the kind of shows that this group of audience that they liked, based on tags, based on labels, and then they combined the data, they combined the labels and mapped out a show that is politics, thriller. I've actually forgot the labels' names, but they basically created a show entirely from scratch based on the data that they collected, based on the machine learning algorithm they were able to produce. So for this, using that example applied to Unilever's freeze and ice cream flavors, for example, they'd be able to in the future predict really bizarre, come up with really bizarre flavors that hasn't been created before, but people would actually like. So using different sort of flavors combined, I don't know, like chocolate, I don't know, mango, whatever kind of flavor there is, right? That hasn't been created before, but people would ultimately would really like. So yeah, I find it really interesting.
I think it's like it's finding that balance. I think that's been the biggest issue. Governance is obviously a massive issue around AI, and I think also the balance between human and AI, and as James said, not being creepy. Because when Sean was taking us through some ad stuff earlier as a team, and it's that when you're being almost targeted constantly by the same thing, you get a little like you're in my space.
Yeah.
It's too close. It's too much. You get ad fatigue. So it's kind of that balance between the two. But things like what Unilever's done with these freezers, I think is just phenomenal. I think it's so interesting, and it's great to see a CPG company taking such big strides, because
Yeah.
they do have an issue of traditional methods that they kind of a lot of their teams kind of cling to. So moving forward as a team and doing innovative things like this, I think is really impressive.
I suppose as a sort of closing remark on sort of placing AI next to the traditional research methods, I think there's definitely we're going through a period of people are sitting in insight teams, market research teams, marketing managers. There's always that fear of adoption. That people will always say, well, if I go back to the legacy supplier, I'm not going to get sacked for it because they've been our legacy supplier for ages. So I do think that we're still in that entrenchment of proving the time and efficiency, the cost efficiency savings. But I definitely think that once, perhaps when AI becomes slightly more within our lifestyles, I think it's going to turn out to be the norm.
Thank you both so much for joining me and for your insights. It's been really interesting chatting about it, especially from different roles within the company. It's interesting to put us all together and kind of have a chat about what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining me, and see you soon.